Here's an old question. Is knowledge enough to make a great man, or even more a great woman, change their ways and their mind? Is seeing where it will lead itself enough to change a truth of your soul? This is Guineverre's truth. When, upon a May morn, she rode out. Now Guineverre had been thinking of her sin, of her love for Lancelot. And so it was she did not take him, but rather Gawain, nephew of the king, upon that May morn. For good or ill, in whatever world she lived, she knew that she would have to ride out upon the May morning. For days in May are more precious than truth, or even in the end virtue. And so out she rode with Gawain and a great company of knights, all arrayed for joy and for hunting, and all the ladies of her court. Deep into Inglewood they rode, deeper and yet ever deeper, for the forest seemed full of ever new delights as the bright sun shone and gave its joy to the world. And they came at last upon a beautiful glade, and there Guinevere and Gawain sat and feasted together. And such was the beauty of the wood that there was peace for a moment in Guinevere's heart, and she thought to herself, I wish I could always be like this. I wish the great God could show me some sign to make me be virtuous at last. Oh, please, can he? And she prayed by powers old and new in that forest in which once the Fae had walked, and in which witches would one day walk, in which she stood under the bright, bright sun. And then Gawain and her and a company of knights rode off further into the wood, further and yet further, and yet strange. Although it was still afternoon, the light shifted. The sun seemed to grow dim and fade from the sky, and it became that light you get upon a November's afternoon, dark and sombre, not quite light, not quite dark, and there was a chill in the air, even though it was a May afternoon, and all the knights started to mutter of enchantment, and the dogs grew close. But Guinevere, who led them, moved as if in a dream, and she could not stop herself moving further and further beyond the ken of men into the depths of Inglewood, until she came to that rare cliff that is sometimes seen and never well, right in the heart of the wood. And by that hard cliff, sometimes, but not always, the dark mere lies that reflects the mirror of truth. When Gawain saw it, for he had seen it once or twice before on his quest, he drew a dagger and said, "We must go, my lady." But Guinevere just stood for a moment, looking out, with eyes that did not seem to see the dark water. And then following her gaze, Gawain saw that the water was covered in a blue flame, the soul's own flame. And when she saw that, Guinevere took off her hood. And Gawain, looking out, saw that the flame had parted. And there was a black shadow like a door. and something was stepping from within. White it was as bone, and yet wreathed still in something akin to shadow. Its long bony fingers then called out to the Queen, "My dear." And it looked at her with eyes, human eyes, sad eyes, eyes that were quite the Queen's own eyes. And looking between them, Gawain could not tell the eyes apart. And then the figure seemed to smile. If bones can smile and shadow can grin. And it said, "You know who I am, Guinevere." And the Queen said, "You are what I will become. If you follow the path you're on, I am your soul." And the Queen stepped back and looked up and said, "Is there no hope?" And the ghost of her soul took a step forward and said, "You know what you must do to save me. Cold it is all alone, buried under the icy tumult of hell. Cold it is under stone, lying in the grave, my Queen. Cold. Can you not this May bright morn change?" And the Queen looked as one in horror. And then the figure said, "If you cannot change, can you repent at last in truth?" And the Queen took a step back, and the shade seemed to dissolve. And as it passed, the blue flame passed, and the mere was gone. And only the cliff was there. The cliff and that mead that leads up to it, that now Gawain knew quite well, as he stood at 5 o'clock upon a May afternoon, and led the Queen, as if she was in a trance, back to distant Carlisle and the King. But could she change, she thought to herself? Or could she rather, repent at the last? And if so, how? If change could not fall before to her soul. And so she put up her hood, and in the sadness of what would come, and in its secret joy, went to find the King and Lancelot in the castle of Carlisle.